Hello, and welcome to On the Way. So this is episode 13, and I've taken a week off, and it wasn't planned, at least not by me, but there was a lot of prayer and meditation that went on this last week. I wasn't quite sure where I was going with this podcast because I'm still having difficulty with the software and getting interviews on here, and I can only take that, the beginning of this week, I could only take that to mean that God was telling me something different. And so I spent a lot of time in prayer and meditation, and it's He who tells me it's time to record. So I didn't feel that last week because of the prayer I was in, trying to figure things out. So here I am, picking up where I left off, and knowing that whatever I talk about from here on out until it's time to do interviews is because He wants me to. So this is part 2 of I guess you would call it a 2-part episode, but I felt like I wasn't done talking about joy at the end of last week's episode, or 2 weeks ago, I should say. But it wasn't until I was in the video towards the end that I felt like there was more to speak about. And in my prayers this morning and yesterday, God made it clear I was to continue talking about joy. And I have a feeling it's because there's not enough joy in this world. But regardless, here I am, episode 13, and I'm going to finish talking about my journey because this is where it gets wrapped up. So if you remember, last week or 2 weeks ago, the episode closed with me visiting my sister-in-law and taking care of her for her foot surgery. While I was here, I want to back up a little bit. I kept feeling like I was going to Michigan. The word Michigan was in my mind because I knew my travels were coming to an end for several reasons. One of them being I was running out of money, but I knew that it was time. I just felt God leading me to settle down. And I was excited because as much as I loved the journey, I was ready to find a home and be in a home and begin my life again, whatever that looked like. So when I kept hearing Michigan, I was doing cruises. If you remember, I spoke about that and thought maybe I would do that for a while. I didn't know what kind of employment I would go into because I am a nurse by profession, but I haven't felt called back into nursing since I moved back to the States from Germany. So I didn't know what job I would hold. But as I neared the end of my journey, I found myself in Illinois before I came to Michigan to take care of my sister-in-law. And I kept hearing Michigan. And because it was so close to Chicago, where I could get on a flight pretty easily and get down to Florida to do the cruises, I thought maybe that's where I would go. So I took my grandkids on a lovely weekend there, but I knew that wasn't the place. You know, in my prayers, I felt it. In my heart, I felt it. It's a lovely city, but it wasn't home. But we had a lovely weekend, the grandkids and I did. So when I came up here and started taking care of my sister-in-law, I realized how lovely this town is. I knew it when I was visiting my stepdad, but it just really felt so lovely. And I thought, well, if I can find a place to rent, I'll know this is home. And I told my brother and his wife, I feel like this is going to be home. And honestly, I was very excited. My parents divorced, my brother was small, and I haven't lived near that brother in a very, very, very long time. So I was excited to get to know him better. So as I was with her, I thought, well, I'll look around and see if there's an apartment that I can afford. And what I was finding was there really weren't any apartments to find. Everything was more of an Airbnb for the summer because I was here in the summer. Then I stumbled onto a beautiful place that had 2 bedrooms because I knew I needed a place to record the videos. And I started looking at the pictures. And the moment I saw the 2nd bedroom, I heard, this is where you're going to record. So I was excited. So I put in my application, and in a little while, I got a text message from the management company saying, you are third on the list. And I thought, okay, well, maybe that's not the place. Maybe it's not Michigan. Maybe it's not Manistee. I wasn't sure. But right before I was to leave on my final two cruises, interpreting cruises, I got a text message from the management team, and she said, "Will you meet me at the house?" And I thought, I don't remember how the conversation went, but I remember asking, you know, okay, I'll meet you there. But one of my questions was to her, because I didn't notice it the first time when I put in my application, that I could only be here for 8 months. So I have a feeling they wanted to rent it through the winter because I was here in August and the summer was coming to a close, and perhaps do an Airbnb in the summer. So because I kept looking at the pictures, once I noticed that it was for only 8 months, I was like relieved that I wasn't going to get the apartment. But when she texted and said, "Will you meet me at the house? It's yours if you want to look at it." I said, okay. And I'd forgotten about the 8 month thing until I got here to look at it. And it's a beautiful Victorian. And I would be renting the first floor. And somebody would be renting above me who was already there. And there's a little place on the side of the house. So there's like 3 apartments, but it feels more like a house because I've got the full floor. But when I met her outside, I said, I was third on the list. How did this happen? And I just want to tell you, I'm not going to move my stuff all the way from Illinois just to have to move it out of here in 8 months. And she said, no, it's yours as long as you want it. And I don't know how this happened, but I knew. It was God's way of saying, this is where I want you. So I shared that with her. And right away, we kind of had this connection. And not to toot my own horn or anything, but I feel connected to almost every person I meet on one level or another. And but sometimes it is deeper. And I felt that with her. So I shared a little bit of my story, and told her, I knew that I was here because God needed me here for whatever reason. So she was excited, and I was excited. And as I looked at it, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I was going to get such a lovely place to stay, because I love the character of old homes. And my home that I had to give up in Illinois to do the traveling and take that journey for God was an older home, and I loved it so much. It had so much charm. So it was very sad to leave that home. So I felt very blessed to get this place. And while it's not my home, I don't own it. I just have the more than enough room on this first level. It was perfect. And so I knew I had a place to live, so I knew this is where I was headed. So I made all the plans to go do the cruises. I'd fly back into Illinois, drive a rental truck with my stuff up here. And so I did all of that and got moved in. And as I got settled and got things moved in, I thought, I've got to find work. I've got rent to pay. And I applied at the place that I'm working at. Has 2 stores, one in a town just 25 miles, I think it is, south of here. And I didn't realize I applied to that town for the job. And it was something I'd never done. I'd never done retail. And I admire those people, especially now that I've worked it. But I've always admired them because it's a lot of work, and I've always known that. So I applied for that job, and my sister-in-law pointed out, she goes, "You applied for that town." And I said, "Oh, well, hopefully they won't call me." And a couple of days later, I was walking around beautiful downtown here. It's a quaint old city, and I just love it. I'm 5-minute walk down to downtown and to my job, so that was a plus, as long as I wasn't working in the other town. But I was downtown walking around, and as I was walking by the front door, they were putting a sign in the window saying, "We are hiring." So I went in and I said, "I've applied online. I sent my resume. but I found out it was for your other store. And this is the store I want to work at. And so she said, well, let's have you fill out another application. So I did. And later I found out that I was supposed to get a phone call within a day or two of when they were going to set up an interview with me and for the other store. So thank goodness that didn't happen. Not that because I've worked the other store and it's a lovely store. It's just a drive and I can walk to work from here. So I got the interview and met the owner. Lovely people. The business has been in business since 1938, and it's an amazing company to work for. But I didn't know how amazing until I started working there. But so I had a job. It was part-time, but one of the employees was going to be leaving in March, and strangely enough, to move to Colorado Springs, where I lived most of my life. So I was excited that it would turn into a full-time job, and I thought God was giving me time to get set up for the podcast. So in setting it up, I just couldn't. I would make videos and send them to my son so he could listen to them because he's an actor and he's been trained in this. He went to the Academy of Art University in San Francisco, and so he has a real good ear and eye for things. And so we decided he would come out here for a visit and help me set up. We put up these sound cushions and he had me get this lighting. And so yeah, I was excited to get that all set up because I was struggling. It was too dark. It wasn't right. There were so many things that just weren't right. And so he came out, and my desk here is placed in front of a window that I knew the moment I looked in that listing, when God said to me, that's where you'll make the videos, I knew that that's where it belonged. That's where I was going to be sitting. So I struggled for a long time, and Mark came out and we set up all this stuff. He showed me how to do the lighting. And then after he left, I got settled into my job, into a little bit of a routine. So I recorded probably about 8 episodes, just all in a row, which there were a lot of reasons why I didn't like those videos. I didn't like the audio, the podcast. I didn't like the videos. I didn't like it. It didn't sound like me. And it didn't look like me. It looked produced. It looked pretentious. It didn't look like me. And so I deleted all the videos, and he was like, are you nuts? I mean, it was a lot of talking, but I'm a talker, so it's okay. So I backed away from recording and put it off and went into prayer again about it. And I was like, I know you want me to do this. I don't know how to do this. And a couple of days before my birthday, I heard, you're going to record on your birthday. That's the day. I want you to do it then. Okay. And so the day of my birthday came. It was a very cloudy day outside. And I sat down. I did all the lighting the way my son showed me how to do and set everything up the way he wanted me to. And I had 2 big, I call them photographer lights. I don't know what they're called. And a little rectangular one in front of me. And I just looked in the camera and looked at my image, and I said, it feels produced. It still doesn't look right. And I heard him say, turn off the lights. Sorry. So I reached up and I turned off both of the photographer lights that were beside me, because my son taught me how to make it look so beautiful. He had me backlight so that my hair, to give me more of a 3D effect, so that my hair was kind of glowing behind me. The minute I shut them off, it did feel a little better, but I said, it's still not right. And I heard, turn off all the lights. So I turned off the small little light in front of me, and the light that came from the window flooded in, just hit me. And it illuminated me in a way that I said, this is what you want. And so I recorded my first episode. And that evening, I was in such deep gratitude that I can hear him so well. But even now, I can feel that joy that day when I thought, you're always going to lead me. You're always going to tell me what I need to do when I'm doing your work. So from then on, I've recorded one episode a week, and it's only at his instruction. It's not a set day. It can be the day before, like this one is. He just tells me when it's time. And from then on, I mean, I knew this before, but from then on, I knew I never have to worry about such things if I just leave it in his hands. So as I'm working this new job, coming to January, my birthday, and I've been sharing with them how long, all along that I was going to do this podcast, and a lot of them have heard the stories because I shared them. The winter months are the slow months there, and I got close to some of the people relatively quickly, and so I had already shared some of my stories with them, but they were excited and looking forward to what I was doing. And then I struggled a little bit with how to get it out there because I don't know these things. But the Lord led me, and here I am. But they're exactly the way I knew they would be, that they wouldn't look rehearsed, that if noises happened, they happened. If I don't sound like a professional quality recorder or podcaster or whatever, I'm not. I just need to share God's love and His Word, the way He gives it to me. So as I learned the job, it's not a hard job. I mean, it's very, very busy right now. This is our busy season. We have, tourists come in. We're a tourist town, and they depend heavily on the summer months. And it's busy. Memorial Weekend was crazy busy, and it was so much fun. But as I learned the job and learned, the people around me, not just my colleagues and my bosses, but the people who came into the store. So many of them had such great stories because the store's been around so long and it's such a small community. Old men would come in and say, oh, I remember my dad bringing me in here and buying me shoes before school. And I just loved listening to their stories because it just added to the joy I felt working there. And there are some days when it's hard work, when there's a lot of moving boxes and, shoes just don't appear in the wall for us to get for you. I guess I just said it's a shoe store. So some days it's a lot of work, a lot of physical work, and I absolutely love it. But it's not challenging in the way, trauma nursing might be, but it has its own challenges. But there's so much joy to be felt in this job. I don't feel the challenges. I feel the joy of the people who come into that store, the people who work there. The owners are amazing people. And I'm so blessed to be working for such an amazing organization that does so much for the community and for their employees. They really are wonderful people. And everyone I work with, I just absolutely love and adore. So as I got used to the job, I was constantly in prayers of gratitude because I was just so thankful that He brought me such a job that I feel so much joy. And I want to share a story. I don't remember if I shared it in one of the other videos. I'm sorry. I don't tend to listen to my own video or podcast. But I've shared this with you that I'm selling more than shoes. It's not. And I don't know if it's because it's a small town, but even people who are just tourists here visiting. So when a few months ago, I want to say it was about March time frame, it was rainy outside and we were not busy because it was not the busy season and it was raining. But these two older women came in and I said, come in out of the rain. Why don't you give me something to do? Let's just try on shoes for fun. We don't work on commission. So I said, let's just try on shoes and have some fun. And they're like, oh, okay. And so we I started taking, they were picking out shoes left and right, and they were older. One of them was celebrating her birthday, and but they did quite well. They're two ladies just traveling. Her husband had passed away a couple of years ago, and she was finally feeling like she can move about, she said, and travel with her friend. And so as they sat down and I was putting shoes on their feet, we were just laughing and having a great time. And the older lady, she was older by about 5 or 6 years. She was closer to 80. And it's all relative, right? Because now that I'm getting older, I feel like, oh, that's not so old. But they seemed older. And the younger one was trying on a pair of shoes that are really kind of spicy. They have a little bit of like leopard skin strap, and it has like a little bit of a wedge heel and a design on it. So they're kind of cute. And the older one just looked at her and was grinning ear to ear. And I could just feel the joy that she felt looking at those shoes of all things. But it was just so cute. And I looked at her and I said, why aren't you trying these shoes on? She goes, oh, I don't know. I said, let's try them on. So we put them on her feet. She walked around that shoe store like she was something, giggling and just grinning ear to ear, just giggling and just looking in the mirror and just laughing and having a moment. And I thought, these are just shoes, and look how much joy she feels from those shoes. And I'm getting emotional because it was an aha moment, if you want to call it that. But anyway, and so she bought the shoes. They bought several pairs of shoes that day, and I am not a salesperson. I don't want to be a salesperson, but they bought shoes, and we had a lovely time. And they stopped by again in the morning to say that they had a lovely time as well. I think they spent 2 or 3 hours in the store. And so my boss, who was there with me, I think there was only the two of us that day, because during the off season, it's very slow, so we can have only 2 employees. I think there was just the two of us. But later that day, she said to me, you're quite the saleswoman. And I said, oh, no, I don't want to be a salesperson. She goes, no. That's what makes you a good salesperson. She said, you're honest. And I said, how can you not feel joy when someone feels that kind of joy? So if that makes people buy shoes, I guess that's being a salesperson? I don't know. And so I struggled with it because I don't want to try and make someone buy something that they really don't need or want. But if it brings you that kind of joy and you have the means, then I get it. I'm not a materialistic person, really. And so shoes brought a whole new meaning to me. I mean, they're just shoes. But it's how you think about them, approach them. And I think this goes for everything. Anything can bring you joy. I don't care what you're selling. I have been blessed to be able to have met someone here who is a massage therapist. And while I can't afford a massage all the time, that's how I met her. And she sells more than just the beautiful massage she gives. And it was during all this time that God blessed me with that massage and let me see that light in that woman's eyes when she put those shoes on and giggled, that I realized that I was selling something more than shoes. I was selling joy, sharing joy. And when you share joy with another human being, it's priceless. And so it really makes me feel so blessed that I learned this lesson in this job. I love the job. I love the people I work for. I love the people I meet every day. But mostly I love the joy I get to experience every single day. And it's not necessarily some woman who just falls in love with a pair of cute shoes. It's a man who tells me the story of how his dad used to bring him there as a little boy. Or the woman who tells me about bringing her children, an elderly woman who tells me about bringing her children in there to get shoes for school. or somebody who's lived in the area for a long time. And as I'm putting shoes on their feet, because we're old time shoe store, that's what we do. We measure you, we fit you, we get your shoes, we put them on you. And as I'm doing it for this one woman one day, she just seemed so sad and closed off. And she didn't buy a pair of shoes for me that day. But we both felt joy because I just spent time with her, figuring out what shoe she liked and what shoe she didn't, and that we didn't have the right shoe for her. But I still got to sell her or share with her some joy. And recently, because I was supposed to continue the podcast talking about joy, when I worked at the other store, a woman came in determined to buy some shoes, and she tried every pair on that she could. She said, I like to help local and, blah, 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 every time I come up here. And she just couldn't find a shoe. And she was walking around trying to convince herself that she liked a pair of shoes. I could tell she just was talking herself into it. And I said, you're just talking yourself into the shoes. These are not your shoes either. And she was a little disappointed, and she sat down. And she said, honestly, I just wanted to keep spending time here because you share so much. And I can feel it. And you're a great salesperson because you tell me honestly, you don't have to buy these shoes. Don't get me wrong. I want the business to keep succeeding. It's a very successful business. And I want to sell shoes because that's my job. That's what they pay me for. But I think I understand the owners well enough to say this, that while they want me to sell shoes, they like me selling joy. Anyway, so I am going to, say goodbye for today. And I'll be recording another one here quickly. I was told that because I have visitors coming. My son and my daughter-in-law are both coming up, bringing grandchildren for me to play with. And so I'm going to be I don't have time off because we can't take time off in the summer, but I'm going to be spending all my time, all my evenings when I'm home from work and the couple of days I do have off, I'm going to be spending that with them and showing them this beautiful place that I was so blessed to be brought to and so blessed to feel so much joy. So I'm going to say goodbye for now, and I will see you next week. And remember, God loves you. And so do I. Have a blessed day.